We've got a great episode for you today. On Factor the Future podcast, we've got Oscar Hedaya, who is a 3-time founder, and his current company is Space. He has spent over 15 years in product development and sales with a focus on identifying overlooked industries. And Alexandria and I, we go into discussion about the discussion about, why didn't I think of that? Or I can't believe that nobody thought of that before. And we go into it in a mostly humorous way on what Oscar did was take something that everyone had thought about and actually deliver on it. With a focus on identifying overlooked industries and bringing modern technology to them, his latest product is the Safe Space, which is the most advanced safe that combines hardware like touchscreens and cameras with software to a unique, connected security experience. Back to the comment, as I said, why didn't I think of that? You think about the Ring, but for safes. His work focuses on bridging physical security with real-time visibility, control, and data, helping both consumers and businesses rethink what security should look like today. What Alexandria really put a focus on is how his entrepreneurship and the gaps and the learnings and his journey and roadmap to what he did on bringing his product into market. He explains how his moment of creating smart safes came from frustration from existing products that haven't been involved for the last 30 years. He goes into his product development and working with third countries on bringing his product into the quality aspects of being one of the top-notch products out in the market. So I want you to enjoy this episode because we talk with a real true entrepreneur and somebody that drives positive change.
Welcome to Factor of the Future, People-Powered Health. Podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
So Oscar, before we get into what the premise of Factor of the Future is and your entrepreneurship journey, you have to tell the story of what you've been doing for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, so I actually was in the Middle East and I went there for a business meeting and I got stuck there, and I guess you could say I was a refugee because I could not get out and I was in the middle of a war zone. Yeah, and so you could imagine there's rockets flying every single day into this, into the country, and you have to constantly be running to a bomb shelter or a bunker, and it could happen out of nowhere. So, this is happening at like 3 a.m, 4 a.m, 6 p.m. God. You have no idea. All of a sudden, you're doing anything. I mean, you could be taking a shower and you get this alarm that says like, woo, and you're like, oh my God, I have to go now. Even if I'm in a towel and there's 100 people in a bomb shelter, you have to go now or you could potentially die.
Yeah. So
that's insane.
When Oscar and I were on the phone or we're talking, he's explaining what we're going to do today. And then all of a sudden he pauses and he goes, well, is everything all right? Well, no, I'm listening. I think there could be a siren. So then we had it wasn't, but everything was fine. But it just, oh my goodness, that's a touch of real quick for me. But we're glad you're safe. You're back in Miami, back in the States, and it's hopefully it's back to business, right?
Yeah, back to business. And it's funny because like the first 2 weeks that I was back, any noise that I would hear that would like resemble the siren, I'd be like, we have to go.
Yeah.
It takes time for the brain to kind of like get back to where reality is. The reality is like, hey, we live in a first world country and like everything is really fine. But it's sad because there's a lot of countries in the world that don't have the luxury that we have, you know?
Right, right. It makes it all the more obvious how good things actually are in the U.S. despite kind of the headlines and everything else. In my opinion, like, I'm a big focus on what's going right, what's going well, what is the good news of the world, because I feel like that's just a downward, spiral of getting into everything that's wrong. So, but
Yeah.
it's not to dismiss the reality that people are living in, especially obviously you having lived in it. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. By the way, I could talk about that for an hour if we start talking about that part. So
got a great segue, and I told Oscar this. I don't know if I told you, Alexandria, at one point when I was in Angola, Africa, for doing a workshop there, and at one point I go back to my room and my safe is open, and nothing was taken, but it freaked me out because long story short, actually my phone wasn't working either, so I was kind of waiting. I had to do everything on my laptop and whatnot. And I shared this with Oscar because that's kind of what we're talking about today is the space. And he was mentioning the fact that some of the technologies that mine was just it was a touch button, but I didn't think anybody broke into it. But I think people that working there had were
master code. Yeah.
So I kind of see the value in what Oscar brings as far as his product, and if you're watching this on video, you can see some of the features that this product has. But I shared that story with Oscar, and I one of the things we wanted to talk about, especially with your background, is can you bring us through the journey of what brought you into the space on Safe?
Yeah. So I my background has been in product development and sales for I don't know 16, 17 years now. I've lost count. But I've been in product development for a really long time, and I was in a place where I needed to buy a safe for myself, for my family, and I couldn't find something that I liked. And being a product developer, I'm like, this is crazy. There's nothing out there. We're in 2020, and there is nothing out there that you would want to buy, right?
Yeah.
You're in a modern world, and you have all this tech, and like the most advanced safe out there just has like a little fingerprint that's been around for 30 years, and most of them are really junky. And that's when like the aha moment, the light bulb kind of turned on, and you're like, this is my calling. This is like what I've done the last like 10 plus years, preparing for this moment. And now I'm going to start my next business. And as a serial entrepreneur, this was perfect for me.
Amazing. So you have your aha moment. You're solving basically your own problem. You think, I can't possibly be the only person out there who has this desire. So tell us about kind of from ideation to kind of your MVP or what steps kind of followed after your aha moment.
Yeah. And so I actually want to say something specifically to this. At that point, I was actually in the place where I was looking to start a new business.
Cool.
I was in between from the last business that I was doing, and I was now looking to start a new business. And I was probably looking at 12 other businesses, ideas, and the way, for me personally, right, as an entrepreneur, before I start a new business, I'm like, hey, I know I want to start a new business. You either you sell your previous business, or you're done with the previous business in whatever capacity, and so now you're looking for a new business. This is slightly different than what most people do, but you could still do the same thing. And you kind of start to let your brain look and feel like, okay, start looking around. Like, what is the world missing? What do you wish you had? You start touching products, and instead of using the product right away, you say like, okay, like this is a water bottle. What would be cool about a water bottle? It hasn't changed in forever, and like, I wish that there was this like spill valve, an anti-spill valve. Yeah. And you kind of start like thinking a little more outside the box, and once you come up on an idea that you like that for yourself, you kind of say, okay, this can I make money with this? Would people actually buy this? I think that's the biggest problem with a lot of businesses that people go into is, they're solving a problem for themselves, but are they solving a problem for everyone else? And with that problem, are they also going to make money with it, right? Like, would people actually buy it, right? Because there's a lot of like solutions out there, but would people pay for it, right? That's the real question. Like, before you go spending 10 or 50 or 200 or even $1 million, 200,000, I meant, you kind of need to do your homework. And I think that's the biggest thing. So for me, I came up with this idea. I said, hey, safes haven't changed in 30 years, and they're not very secure. And you're either getting like a crappy, excuse my language, if you're getting either like a really crappy safe that somebody could break into, or you could get a better safe, but you're spending money and you're not really getting any extra added benefit. And that's where I said, hey, what would be great is if I knew in that moment, if there was a burglary happening, or somebody, a burglary could happen from somebody breaking into your house, or it could happen from somebody who's working in your house.
Yeah.
Right? And so right now I actually have somebody building out something in one of the other rooms. I have no idea what they're doing, right? They're here for 2-3 days just doing a build out on something. I would have no idea if I say, hey, I'm going downstairs, I'm going to go have lunch, because I'm not going to hang out here, right? Yeah. You don't know if they're going and touching your safe or anything like that. And so, to have notifications and to be connected to your safe, it's one of the things that was super important to me. So I came up with the idea. I started writing down on a piece of paper, hey, these are the things that I want. These are the things that I need. And then the things that you need are the most important. And you start building out like, hey, if I built out this product, this is what it would maybe cost me. Just assumptions. You're not in that business, so you don't know. And then what would the nice to haves be adding to the cost? And would people pay a premium for it, right? Like if you're buying one sensor that maybe costs $3, but there's a lot of value for it, there's a no-brainer that you should be having that in there.
Yep.
And so I know I kind of like, I'm all over the place with answering your question. So if I missed something with your question, please.
No, that's actually brilliant, and I think it's a great example of how entrepreneurs think. Yeah. I think if you're an entrepreneur listening to this, the way you describe moving throughout the world is, I think, kind of an entrepreneur's default mindset, right? Of how could this be better? What I'm interested in is one thing you touched on, and I would like maybe for you to expand on it, is how do you go about, as a successful entrepreneur, figuring out the will people pay for it? Like, do you talk to people, right? Like, what is your solution with that? Because I'm currently in that place right now. I would say maybe a little bit further along in my development, but I'm interested to know, like, what's been successful for you in terms of that, figuring out, will people pay for it? And then if so, what will they pay for it, right? How do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, so my thoughts, I mean, for me personally, I've been in that world for so long that maybe I don't realize it's just innate, But I would say this, the most important thing, people love to say, you need to ask people, you need to ask around, I'm going to tell you this, people lie, okay? People, you're going to ask people, hey, what do you think of this? If they think they hate it, they're still going to say, oh, it was great, right? Because nobody wants to tell you to your face. Nobody wants to hurt your feelings. There's no reason for it also. Right there. So I don't trust people when they're talking to you in front of your face. Right. Okay. So my biggest thing is you have to do the homework yourself. You go to a store, if you go to a Target, if you go to a Best Buy, I don't know what you're selling, whatever you decide to start selling, you're seeing the other products that are on the shelves that people are paying for. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest indicator that what the value is going to be. Right. And then after that, there's always a premium. right? There's always like this extra premium that people are willing to pay on top of it. The argument always is like, hey, if you're buying a car, right, you could buy a car for $15,000, $20,000, I think, right? You could also buy a car for $100,000, you know? I think Kia and Hyundai makes an incredible car, which is not expensive, which you could be getting all the bells and whistles that you're spending $100,000 on, you know? So the question is like, you start looking more in the world of like how people make purchases, and you'll say like, okay, people are willing to spend a little more on luxury or status symbols, you know, so that could help you define, hey, would people be willing to spend this? I think we live in a world today where you have ChatGPT, you have Anthropic, you have all these incredible AI tools, which no longer make you need to ask somebody specifically, where you could actually ask like AI, say like, hey, I'm thinking of creating, let's say it didn't exist when I started this company, but if I wanted to say like, hey, I'm thinking of creating a safe and these are the features and this is the thing and this is the specs about it, would people be willing to spend this money on it? You know, I think once you kind of add that together, that is more valuable than going and asking somebody.
That's a good insight. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
AW. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Oscar.
I think the other part also is really the best way, aside from doing that, is you run a pre-order, or you run a sample sale. You know, test whatever you're trying to sell beforehand, and you're going to know right away, like, are people willing to put their money behind it, right? And that's what it always comes down to.
Do you manufacture, or is it a third party that you're using?
It's a little of both, right? We don't own the manufacturing facility that we work out of that manufactures our safes, but it's all our designs. It's all created by us. I remember the first time I went to our factory, and because I actually made samples in another factory. I made samples in a metal factory, and then I went to a safe manufacturer. And because originally when I went to the safe manufacturer, they actually didn't want to talk to us. And and so what I did was I made this incredible sample, and with the metal manufacturer, I spent I spent thousands of dollars on it, on these samples. Each one was close to like $6,000 for a sample.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I went to the what's it called? The safe manufacturer. And I said, hey, these are the products that we're making. And they're like, wow, we've never seen anything like this, you know, both in software, the fact that we have software, and on top of it, our designs for the safes. And so I think there's something to say when you're actually able to bring a sample to a manufacturer.
Yeah.
It shows like, hey, we're serious. We put money behind this. It's not just an idea and we're ready to rock and roll. We don't own those factories, but they are manufacturing our designs the way we want. And so, and for me personally, I would probably never own a factory. And if I did, I would make sure that it's not making just my products, because you don't want downtime, right?
Yeah.
You're a business. You're an operation that, like, every minute, if you're a manufacturer, if you're a factory, you know, every hour that if you don't have products that are being manufactured, that's a loss of technically revenue. So so it's, if you go with a big factory that has the capacity to manufacture your stuff and then also do their stuff, for me, that's the best thing for both parties.
How do you check quality for your company?
So I'll tell you this. So we manufacture in Asia. We manufacture in China mostly. I hate to say this because it makes me sound racist, but I don't really trust them. You know, I've been manufacturing in Asia and different countries, not just China, for what is it, like 18 years now. And I'll tell you this: given the opportunity, people will cut corners, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest problem with it is you need to do your own quality control, and that means because there's a lot of companies out there that you could hire somebody by the day. And the more work that you give them, the more it's going to cost, right? It could cost anywhere from $250, and I don't know what the costs are today because I use my own people. But the costs used to be like $250 to $500 per person per day, and they go in and they do quality testing based on what you ask them to do. What I've found, and I've been in Asia for so long, and I have really good relationships with a lot of factories that they even tell me that they would pay these workers on the side to like turn the blind eye,
Oh my God.
Why wouldn't they? Right? Nobody's making enough money. And all of a sudden, like, hey, if he's making $250 from me or $500 for me, and the factory says, hey, this order is costing us, this order is a $300,000 order, and we'll give you $1,000 to turn the other way. Why wouldn't they do that?
Right.
Like, it's easy money. They don't have to work. And what are the odds that the person who's ordering the goods would even know? So for me, I don't do that anymore. I mean, I did that in my early years, and I realized how bad it was because, and you could find somebody that's great, but if that's the case, I would just hire them separately. You know what I mean? Find somebody you like, hire them, pay them a little more. But yeah, so basically quality control, specifically for our safe. We actually have, because this is a software-based product, right? You have a physical hardware, and then you have a complete operating system on the safe. So you could imagine it's like a tablet on the safe. So we actually have on the safe a testing software that we run, that we have each person run, and it tests each individual electronic on its own.
That's really brilliant.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
I want to go back to one thing that you said about the decision to partner with the other safe manufacturer. I think it's counterintuitive for most people. Like the whole, oh, what if they steal your idea? Obviously, there's legal things that you can do. But I think a lot of businesses would benefit from taking that same approach, either from being the manufacturing side that has the opportunity to improve capacity, or being the person who needs the manufacturing done, looking at who's already doing this, who's already got the equipment, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's a really brilliant strategy. And I hope that some of our listeners will take that to the bank and, apply that same methodology in their own use case. So really great idea there.
And I want to be very clear with this. If you do that, you really need to make sure that you sign contracts, right?
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, anybody could copy you if they want to. Anybody could do anything they want to. But the more layers of protection that you have for yourself, I mean, clearly I'm all about security and protection, right?
Yeah.
But the more layers of protection you have for yourself, the better. Personally, when I have contracts that I make manufacturers sign or anybody sign, I also make sure that we have arbitration as the as whoever's
resolution. Yep.
Right. The reason is you don't want to be in a situation where you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and years in court. If you're able to have a judge who resolves, and you usually could pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, whatever you guys decide, in terms of arbitrating, that solves a lot of issues very quickly, and it saves a lot of money. So anybody who's going to do contracts, I do highly recommend that, because the courts also see arbitration as the final say. So
yeah. That's amazing advice. So what layers of protection do you have? I asked because I just learned about a friend, colleague, long-term, whatever. He was telling me about patent. I think it's a use patent. Do you have something similar to that for your safes? What layers of protection do you have?
Yeah, so we have a utility patent. It's a patent pending, actually.
Okay.
It takes the government years to actually approve them. I think they're like 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. You're spending, $20,000-$30,000 on a patent, and it's you have to wait years to find out. Like, hey, this is. But yeah. That's one of the things that I would recommend to people. But it really depends on what you're making, what you're selling, what you're manufacturing. It's important to know also that like anything could be copied, anything could be broken into,
Right.
And the other thing to note is only because you have this patent that like and maybe is protecting you, maybe it isn't. But if it is, and somebody's copying you, you're still going to have to go spend money to sue them,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's so funny because like, this company is a startup for me still, right? It's still in the startup phases. So I don't have millions of dollars backing me. So if a company, like CenturySafe decided to like copy my stuff, and I hope they're not listening, and I hope they do the right thing. You always hope somebody's going to do the right thing, but they're able to they're able to defend my court case for years where I may not be able to, so
right.
So it's important to know when you are an entrepreneur, when you're starting a new business, you have a limited amount of funds. If you're backed by other people, it's a little different. If you're bootstrapping, you're spending your own money, you're kind of looking at every dollar, and you have to decide like, hey, is this going to be worth it long term, right? Because patents, they're not forever. They're a couple of years.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. Patents is one of the things. For me personally, I manufacture a safe. My safe has electronics, and nothing is developed by the safe manufacturer. And again, everybody has their own logistics, and supply chain. But for me, what's the most important was that we found our own electronics suppliers. We found our own engineers. And so everything is done by us. And so instead of having this one facility that orders electronics, manufactures the safes, does the PCBA, does the software, we don't do any of that, right? So we have, instead of just this one place, you could think of like, we have like 20 different layers of different places, and then it all comes together in this one place, right?
Yep.
So
it would be like KFC or Coca-Cola, where things are manufactured or created in silos, and basically it protects that bleed of somebody knowing start to finish. Yeah, exactly. That's brilliant. Did you copyright your code?
Yeah.
I just learned you could do that.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, also, I think copywriting is anything that you create is copyrighted, right? I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I mean, I haven't done any of like trademarking and copywriting and patents in years, so I'm a little rusty on it. But as far as I'm aware, anything that you make is technically copyrighted, especially if you put the logo on it. Then it's
Well, Alexander, what's the difference between copywriting and what
trademark
sourcing?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, say that again.
My question is, Alexandria, what's the difference between copywriting and I thought code is just open sourcing. I didn't know you could.
No, you can elect to put your code as open source. And that's a decision to make. I think a lot of people who do coding do that for the good of the coding community. But I think for stuff like software companies, the key is to protect your code, and you can copyright it, which is what I just recently learned. And so you basically provide the beginning and end of your code, and it's a fairly straightforward process. But trademarking is a different, legal action, I would say, altogether. Not an attorney, and I don't have any experience trademarking. But like from an IP and from actually maybe trademark. So one of my friends is a trademark attorney here in Chicago, And she was kind of walking me through, like, basically you have to individually document from the minute that you develop your trademark. And that's more of like for branding, versus copyright is for like how the software operates, or copyright is your authored poetry or songs or those things, so people can't steal it, but you have to register it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
The other question I got for you, I guess for Oscar,
Yeah.
now, it looks like your product, you make one. There's not a big line of different
Safes.
safes. I don't know why that was a tough one to come up with. Which is, if that's true, I mean, that's honestly that's great. I mean, it keeps it simple, especially if you're having your built overseas and having to bring it over or wherever it's being sent to, and I guess it's more focused onto your core. I mean, you're building these safes, and your ideal customers are Airbnbs, hotels. I don't know, maybe gun owners, maybe small gun owners. Maybe that's another option. But it probably is. You probably, if you're not number one, you're probably going to be there at some point. But you do have a high brand product that you're going forward and focusing directly on that, and only making that part better. So I think that's like textbook, honestly. But a lot of people don't follow that. So I think you're going down the right path, and I can see value in it. It's really, I mean, it makes sense. It just makes sense, and it's just one of those things that. Why didn't I think of that? Well, Oscar.
Yeah. By the way, so thank you very much. And the why didn't I think of that is what you need to ask yourself. We were talking in the beginning, like what makes the product value, right? Is if somebody else would say that, right? If somebody else, Alexandria, we were saying that before, right, in the beginning, is you need, if you're creating something, if you're going to sell something, if you're going to quit your daytime job and make whatever thousands of dollars you're making every year, and you're going to take the risk and start something yourself, you really want somebody else to say for the product you're creating, inventing, selling is, wow, why didn't I think of that? Or I had that idea, I just never did anything with it. Those are the most. Those give you validity.
So I thought of that. I wish I would have acted on it. Is actually Farmer's Dog, and now I'm a Farmer's Dog customer. So hopefully they'll hear this. But I actually was making my dogs homemade dog food, and I was like, this should be a business. But then I learned one very important lesson, which is when you have inspiration for a business idea, don't talk to people who are unwilling to take the risk or who would be your veto audience, right? Like that can really deter you. And that same veto audience comes back and is like, man, you should have done that. Look at these people. They did it, the hang up for me was the packaging. And every time I open my farmer's box of dog food, I'm just like, yeah.
I actually, if it's okay with you guys, I actually have an image, like a meme that I saw, I think it was like 7 years ago. And I even have, like in my office, I printed it out and I put it on the wall. But basically, it's a guy who's, it's like a split screen, right? So you have one side, the other side, and it's an image. And one side, you see this guy digging for gold, and they're both digging towards gold. And one side, you see this guy saying, "Oh, there's nothing there. You're never gonna get there. What are you doing? Why are you wasting your time?" And like you see the guy like, okay, like quitting. And then the other side, you see the guy saying like, "You got this. You're gonna do this. You're gonna get it. Like there's for sure something in there." And they're both reaching towards the same thing. And one guy, based on how much feedback and good energy you're having, you're gonna get there. But if you have negative energy and people against your ideas, or I don't want to say like a lot of people have bad ideas, So, but you need to make sure that people, like if you have a good idea, right? And that's also an important thing. We're not going to go into that. That could take a 20-minute conversation. But surround yourself around people who support you, right? And that's an important thing. but as long as the idea is good, because if you're going to waste time on a bad idea, you could spend $1 million and nobody's going to buy anything you sell, because AW, back to what we were saying before about the safe size. Right now I have one safe size. The plan is that in the next 12 to 18 months, we release 5 other safe sizes. The safe size, thank you. The safe size that you see now is the most common safe size, and that's why we chose that. And it's important, again, to say, if you're going to make something and you're going to make a business, you're fighting against the other products out there. That's the truth, right? If somebody's going to buy you over something else, so I wouldn't make I wouldn't make a safe that's 10 by 10 feet by 10 feet if there's no what's it called? If there's no customer for it, right? Yeah. If there's no market for it. And so that's why we released that size first, is because that is the most common safe size, right? So if you're starting a business, you have to give yourself the best chances you have to make sure you're going to be successful. But yeah, so stay tuned for the other safe sizes. There's something else I wanted to say. So I met, what's his name? Jamie Siminoff, the founder of Ring. And and I told him about the product and everything, and I showed him, and he's like, wow, this is so cool, man. This is really, really great. And I actually asked him, because we're in the middle of raising, but I asked him if he wanted to be a part of it, and he said he can't because of Ring. But but he's like I love this. So yeah,
this is amazing. That's awesome bit of kind of tier digging concept, right? Like he's there on the cheering you on side and kind of gassing you up. That's amazing and good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, he's gonna go on the wall also.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. What else do we have?
Any last thoughts?
What else do you want people to know about your safe or about entrepreneurship or anything left unsaid? Any words of wisdom?
Yeah, so I it's so funny because like people always so I've been involved in a lot of like cohorts and accelerators and stuff like that. The reason I do it, I have more experience than probably 99% of people who join them and who are teaching the classes. The reason I do them is because you never know what kind of network you could grow. You never know what somebody may say from one of these classes or cohorts, and also because a lot of them also like promise like, hey, we're gonna send your company to a pool of our investors, right? So there's no reason not to do them. But the one thing that people always talk about is ICPs, right? Your customer, your ideal customer. It's funny because not everybody gets their customer right, and I think that's one of the things that, like, again, we live in an age of open AI and Anthropic, where you could ask 1,000 questions to this AI instead of asking your friends, because maybe your friends don't give you the best advice, or maybe there's always a little jealousy when somebody's starting something that could make them $1 billion versus somebody staying in their job and making $50,000 or $100,000.
Yeah, the crabs in the bucket. Yeah,
exactly. But I think it's important to like try to think outside the box also with your ICP. For me specifically, I always wanted to sell my safes to hotels, and I just always said, hey, maybe the safes in the hotels are better to sell them last, right? So we have different phases that we roll out our products in. The first one, I always said, like, hey, consumers is the number one. Why? You like the safe, you're going to buy it. You sold one, right?
Yeah.
Then after that, it's retail. It takes a little more time to get your safe into a Best Buy or a Costco. So while you're doing number two, you could be doing number one at the same time, and it may not cost you any extra, not money, but your own bandwidth, right? Your bandwidth or your resources. And then the third one is for like enterprise solutions and hotels. And so I always thought hotels would be in there. My focus over the last probably couple of months have been, you know what? I've been preparing my team to kind of go after hotel now first, because, and again, they were one of my ICPs, but much later. But the reason is, imagine this. Imagine you're going to stay in a hotel. This safe is specific for luxury hotels. So if you're staying in a Four Seasons or a Rosewood, and you may see them soon in one of these locations, but if you go there and you enter the PIN code to set up the safe takes about like 10 seconds to set up. But you put in your PIN, you have an optional fingerprint. Then after that, you have optional notifications via SMS or WhatsApp. You don't even have to download an app. But imagine if now, I was talking with AW before about it, but imagine if you're at the pool and you're on vacation, you're spending $1,000, $2,000 a night at a hotel room, and all of a sudden you get a notification that says incorrect PIN was entered on your safe, and you're not there, and the person you're traveling with is right next to you.
Yeah.
You're running back, you're calling the hotel, you're stopping this burglary in action, right?
Yep.
And I'm giving you a scenario so you understand what the product is. But the reason I love this ICP more than I did before is if you were there and you were staying in the hotel and you like this product, you're now going to probably also go online and look up this product, see if you can buy this product for your home. And now you just got 2 sales out of the 1 sale.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. And if somebody's staying in that room, if it's occupied 60% of the year, you're talking about almost
Marketing.
200 people that are looking at your safe every year just in that one room who may also buy from there. So my recommendation to people is like, try to think outside the box,
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Thank you.
Have you thought of
inside of it too?
Come again?
There's a camera inside it?
Yeah. So for hotels specifically, we take out the camera in the front. We don't even want it to be there because we don't want anybody to think that their privacy is, and then the camera inside is only for hotels specifically, is only made to take a picture before and after. Sorry, I'm talking as if everybody knows what I'm talking about. But when you check into the hotel and before you use the safe, it takes a picture of the contents inside. And then when you check out, it takes a picture of the contents inside. So AI compares what's inside, and if you've left something inside, it'll send you, again, a notification if you signed up for the notifications and said, hey, here's a picture. Is it okay to check out? Or do you need to come back to the hotel? Does it need to stay secure?
Brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oscar,
I think my dad has actually left. Yeah. I think my dad has actually left stuff in a safe, so he would have benefited greatly from that.
No, you have to rethink that, because here's the scenario I have. I've got 2 almost teenagers now, and they know all my passwords, and they never do anything wrong. So I would want a camera inside my safe, because they would be the ones figuring it out and how to get in there.
So for the consumer version, we have that.
Okay.
Right? But for the hotel, we have to, for privacy purposes, we have to, limit whatever is happening. But so it's, so for this particular, for your kids, you would be able to see them in the, in the camera. Yeah.
All
Cool.
right, Oscar.
Well, Oscar, thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad to have you on the show today. If we'll put your contact in the show notes so people can reach out and your safe website. I think that's all for today. Yeah.
And I'm big into giving back and community and everything like that. I always tell people, if you ever have questions, you want to bounce anything off of me, email the company. And if the company sees something specific to me, they forward it to me. They send it to me, and I'll respond to you.
Amazing.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.